Hello everybody, good evening and welcome to the United Stand. This is your latest Manchester news. It's the Manchester United news. It is the Sunday night show, the flagship show of the United Stand, where we like to do it a little bit more reflective and looking forward and topical. And what we're going to be talking about tonight is Erik ten Hag's new Manchester United. It's certainly not the plan he had at the start of the season. We'll talk about where that went wrong, similarly to last year, and why he's now had to formulate a new plan and what that means for the season ahead. What next for the season ahead? The positives, the negatives, the realities, the outcomes. Let's look into it. What's his best 11? What are we likely to get over the season ahead? What expectations are realistic? What problems are still to be solved? What the January transfer window could look like? What the sales situation could look like? What certain players that could be heading out? Lots and lots to discuss. And I think most important of all, it's an assessment of where we are, because last night, I wouldn't say it was a get out of jail card, but it certainly given us a little bit of calm in a time of negativity over the last few weeks, hasn't it? So lots to talk about, and as always, we would implore your involvement in that. But before we get into that, as you can see, the weather is starting to turn. I'm in my Boohoo Man fleece hoodie. Love that. Winter is certainly heading towards us and summer is starting to say goodbye. Today's show is brought to you by Boohoo Man, and they are giving you a massive 40% off when you use the code GOLDBRIDGE at checkout. You can scan the QR code next to me, or you can go through the link in the description. Get all your clothing wear from Boohoo Man, whether you're down the gym, playing five-a-side, relaxing, watching telly, or the United Stand like me. Fantastic way to kit out your wardrobe for the coming autumn months with 40% off on what are already really reasonably priced products with Boohoo Man. Thank you very much to them for the 40% off. Use Goldbridge as the code. But on top of that, it would not be a Boohoo Man sponsorship if they didn't give us a bit of trivia. So fasten your seatbelts. It's not Nanny. Who am I? I was born on the 24th of September, 1962 in Nelson, England. Didn't even know there was a place called Nelson in England, and I live in England. I was known for my versatility, playing both as a defender and a midfielder. My first professional club was Burnley. I don't know who this is. Whilst at Manchester United, I won the Premier League, the FA Cup, the League, and the European Cup Winners' Cup. Okay. I was promoted to first team coach in 2001 and later became the assistant manager. And in the UK, I played for Burnley, Norwich and Manchester United with a short spell at West Bromwich Albion. I'm not too sure who that is. Well, I do know now because I've seen the answer. It's certainly not Nanny, and I'll give it to whoever gets it first in the chat. While we're waiting for that, don't forget you can get 40% off with the code GOLDBRIDGE with the Boohoo Man. Link is in the video description, and you can scan that QR code next to me. I still haven't seen anybody get it in the chat. It's not Steve Bruce. David Harrington got it. It is, of course, Mike Phelan. Well, it's not, of course. It is Mike Phelan. So well done if you got that. Thank you very much to Boohoo Man. They've thrown a different one in there. It's not Chuck Norris either. He didn't play for Man United. He had a great career in film, but not at Manchester United. Right, let's get going. Darren Fletcher definitely wasn't born in England. He's Scottish. He played for Scotland, and he's definitely got a Scottish accent. Right, let's get into the show. So, how are we feeling about Manchester United at the moment? I think that look, the result against Burnley last night has sort of given some calm to a situation that was looking very, very, very uncertain. I'm not saying that you, the fans, were starting to turn against the manager or the players, but you were certainly being encouraged to do that by the media, because I have to say this at the start of the show. Chelsea are terrible. They've spent £1 billion over the last year. It is a club that's very difficult to turn around, but 6 points from 6 games is crap, no matter who the manager is. But of course, Pochettino's been on Monday Night Football when he was at Spurs. We're Sunshine Pochettino. We love Pochettino, don't we, Jamie? We love him. And Pochettino doesn't get any stick at all. You've got to give Pochettino time. He's only inherited a squad that spent £1 billion and already has brilliant players. 6 points from 6 games ain't that bad when you think about it. It is bad. It's shocking. But Pochettino is a media darling in this country because he's been on Monday Night Football. Erik ten Hag was an unknown. He's an obsessive. He's his own man. He's not interested in kissing arse with the media, and he's an easy target because that's what they want to do. So we saw that last week, didn't we, with Ten Hag? And this win last night has basically forced the media to have to look at Chelsea for a bit. And I hope that may that continue, because it means that we can focus on what we want to focus on, which is a bad start to the season, but is hopefully just a little bump in the road that we can iron out and move forward. And I think that's what I want to talk about tonight. So the win against Burnley last night was essential. I don't think we learned a hell of a lot from it. But what we did learn is a very similar thing that I hinted about last season, and that was that Erik ten Hag is going back to basics. And we saw that last night. Burnley had more possession than us. Burnley were arguably the better footballing side than us. They had no cutting edge. We kept a clean sheet. We scored a worldie and we won 1-0. Nelson is 5 minutes away from Burnley, says Daniel Flood, and not turning on Ten Hag, but when is it fair to ask for some type of footballing brand? Seeing Spurs makes me even more depressed. We don't have any idea, says King. This is what we're here to talk about, King. This is exactly the sort of thing we want the interaction with. These are the shows I like. It's great to talk about match reactions. It's great to do watch-alongs. It's great to do previews. It's great to get Fabrizio on. It's great to talk about transfers. But I love these shows because it's the core. It's what we were always about. This is what the United Stand started off with. One show a week on a Sunday talking about this sort of thing. It's 5 points from 6 games mark for Chelsea. Absolutely shit, Milton. Yes, rubbish. But it's not the Chelsea stand, it's the United stand. And I think that you make a great point, Rolo, actually. At what point do we get to see some football? Good football. Ange has done it at Spurs in a very short period of time. I can't argue with that. The Spurs one worries me in the sense that I can't argue against it. I can argue against the Brighton one because people go, well, De Zerbi's been there less than Ten Hag and he's got them playing great football. And I'll go, but Brighton's a better run club than Man United. Their recruitment is the envy of the rest of Europe. Man City and Pep envy Brighton's recruitment. People are trying to catch up with Brighton's recruitment because the system they've got in place is amazing. And they were a good team with Potter. So De Zerbi landing there had a lot of things around him to make him hit the ground running. And he's done a great job. So I can always say you can't compare United to Brighton because they're a well-run club. Spurs aren't necessarily a well-run club, if I'm looking at it. Daniel Levy is a bit greedy and doesn't massively invest in the club. And yet they are playing good football very, very quickly. It could be new manager bounce. I think you've got to be careful with Spurs. And in 2 months' time, we might be going, remember what we said about Spurs. But Ten Hag is really struggling to get these players to play good football. I think we can all admit that, and we need to analyse that, and we'll do that now. Could we really expect more than 1-0 versus Burnley with the current squad? I think we did good. Casemiro looked better, and I'm looking forward to results as impossible movies. And shout out to Las Pastor and Daniela, who are getting ready to go to church while I'm listening to the GOAT Goldbridge Great Sunday, says Franco. There we go. I hope I pronounced that right. I sort of probably didn't. But I think that what we need to look at, first of all, is what's next for Manchester United this season? What's the realistics? We're going to go through quite a few things. We're going to talk about how he solves the problems in the squad, the imminent issues of Jadon Sancho and Anthony. Also, January transfer window. Also, your realistic expectations and how that balances with what United are going to do. We'll talk about the sale. But I think what we need to do is... Dylan says we looked shite yesterday. What we need to do is establish where you are with Man United at the moment. What are your expectations realistically for this season, and what are your expectations in line with reality, I suppose? I think when this season started, Erik ten Hag would have looked at it and gone, I want to improve on third place. I want to go deep in the Champions League and I want to improve on third place. And I think that was the plan. And I think he wanted to play better football. He spoke in pre-season. He spoke in the early games about wanting to play exciting, fast transition football. And I think that that's what he came into the season hoping to do. Parallel with what he intended to do at the start of last season when we went on tour and we played good football and we had 70% possession and then we lost to Brentford and Brighton and it was, oh shit, what's going on here? This is not meant to happen. And suddenly we went back to basics and started beating relegation fodder 1-0. Ring any bells? I think that Ten Hag has abandoned what his plan was. I think it's been forced upon him. I think that the team is not fit enough. I think we've got too many injuries and I think the results have dictated that he cannot persist with this. And I talk about the Arsenal game and I talk about the Wolves game and you'll know what I'm on about. This leave the ball with the back centre backs and everybody bomb forward and there's a massive gap between the defence and the midfield. That has been abandoned in the last couple of games. We have definitely gone back to what we were doing last season, which is defensive, close to each other and reactive in relation to the moments and the counter-attack. So I think what we saw against Burnley last night was what had to happen. We tried to do it against Bayern as well. Everybody's close together. We're trying to keep it tight. We're trying to keep clean sheets, and we're trying to get a goal at the other end, and that's what worked. I think that we will persist with that. I think we will see the same against Crystal Palace twice this week, and I think we will see the same against Galatasaray, and I think we will see the same against Brentford, and then it will be the international break, and he'll reassess. I think Ten Hag will have done what he did after Brentford and Brighton last season, and he'll have said to the squad, look, ultimately, I want to play good football, but over the next few weeks, we need to win games. And we win games by not conceding goals and relying on our players to provide that moment that scores a goal, like we saw last night. So I think we've gone back to basics. And I think there's a conversation to be had there about whether that's acceptable in Season 2 and why other teams are playing better football than us and why we're going back to being a counter-attacking, moments-reliant team. That is a conversation to be had. But I think at the moment it gets defeated by the fact that we probably have a first team of injuries. And yesterday you've got Scott McTominay, Johnny Evans, Hannibal, Reguilon, Dalot, Lindelof, a lot of players that wouldn't normally be starting. So I think you've got to cut some Ten Hag some slack there. Mark, when will Ten Hag realise that he needs to learn to stop playing his favourites even if they don't perform, says Aha. I tell you what I will say here. You've always got to observe what's going on in other games. And can I just say, I know it doesn't mean anything, but we lost to Spurs. We lost to Spurs 2-0. And we should have been 1-0 up at half-time because Romero handled the ball. I know you saw it in the North London derby. He's closer to the Arsenal player. The Arsenal player is on the spin and it hits his hand and they got a fucking penalty. Garnacho shoots at him. He can see the ball. He's outstretched his arm. It's more of a penalty than that. And lo and behold, we don't get a penalty. And all you'll get people saying is, well, it should have been a penalty for Wolves. And I'm tired of it because the Wolves, whether it should have been a penalty for all Wolves or not, that was on the opening day. We've had about 6 bad decisions go against us since then. And it was 100% a penalty with Romero. But what I was going to say is that watching the North London derby today, I saw 2 things that Ten Hag really does have to take on board. I've mentioned Jurgen Klopp does it with Salah. Ange did it with 20 minutes to go with his best player on the pitch. He took Son off with 20 minutes to go. Son was on a hat-trick and he took him off to bring Richarlison on. And I was like, this is not Rashford's problem. This is Ten Hag. And also, Arteta did it with Saka. You've got to take your players off, no matter how good they are. If they're not playing well or they're getting tired, in this game now, Ange takes Son off with 20 minutes to go, but he knows it's half an hour because there'll be 10 minutes added on. And he trusts those players that are going to come on. Now, I you know me, I absolutely back Ten Hag, but I think he's got to start taking better players off. I'd actually applaud it if he took Rashford off. I'd almost applaud it if he took Bruno off. It is a little bit different with Bruno because he is the captain, and I understand that. And he is a bit of a beast. But look, I want to see Ten Hag doing those things. I just wanted to throw that in there. But in relation to what's next for United, what is next for Manchester United? What is it you are expecting from Manchester United this season? Now, I think at the start of the season, I put us in 3rd. I predicted we'd win the Champions League, but look, there was a theory behind that, and you're doing it blind as well. So look, but I expected 3rd and maybe another trophy. And I look at it now, and I know we've only had 6 games, and things will change. Teams that are not doing great at the moment will start to come back into it, like Villa. Villa got smashed by Newcastle and Liverpool, and they're right back in the top 4 race now. Maybe somebody will drop out. Maybe Liverpool or an Arsenal or a Spurs will drop away. It's still very early days. But we're talking about Manchester United. I don't think we're out the woods yet. I really don't think we're out the woods at the moment. And I'm not going to mess about. I'll tell you what I think, and then I'll tell you why. I personally think, Riyadh says 7th place. Michael Talbot says top 4 or nothing. And also, 9 points should be what we get from the next 3 games. We've got Crystal Palace at home, Brentford at home, and then Sheffield United away. Says Sab. Well, mate, if we can't beat Sheffield United away, we may as well relegate ourselves now. 8-0 against Newcastle, 8 different scorers. Sheffield United and Luton, it's 6 points. Everybody's got to take 6 points in those games. 5th place could be Champions League as well, says Fly. Right, so I'm saying this. United, realistic this season, 4th place and maybe a trophy. And that is what I think our ceiling is. And I know that will frustrate some of you. And I will instantly say it's not good enough. You know, he should be doing better than that. He's got a better squad than that. He spent some money. We're Manchester United. That is a drop down from last year. But that's basically what I'm saying. I'm saying I expect a drop off from last year. I expect our ceiling this season is 4th place and maybe a trophy, dependent on who takes the trophy serious. Like, we've got Carabao Cup defenders. Newcastle play Man City on Wednesday. Who's going to take that seriously? Are Liverpool going to take it seriously? Will Villa take it seriously? Will Brighton take it seriously? Will Chelsea take it seriously? Will Arsenal take it seriously? We could win a cup if enough other clubs don't take an interest in it. And maybe the Carabao Cup is our best chance. So I think 4th place and maybe a trophy is our absolute ceiling this season. And of course, that's our ceiling. We might not hit the ceiling. So we could be looking at 5th or 6th and no trophy. I think anything less than that is abysmal. Why do you think that, Mark? Mark, who do you honestly think will drop out of the top 4 to allow United in? City, Arsenal, Liverpool, Spurs, Newcastle, Brighton are all better than us. Well, that's the challenge, Jim. And I don't agree with you on that. I absolutely agree that Man City will win the league. I think Arsenal and Liverpool are better than us and will be above us. But we're going to have to battle it out with Newcastle, Aston Villa, Brighton and Spurs for 4th place. And we're going to have to win that battle. And I don't think it's acceptable if we don't win that battle. And I think I don't like the fact that we're battling for 4th with those teams I've just mentioned. But that is the reality that has been bestowed on us. If we don't reach that reality, then I don't think it's acceptable. But I think we are in a position now after 6 games where we've won 3 and lost 3, where we've seen enough to predict what this season's going to be about. I don't think you can do it in pre-season, and everybody does it. My Premier League predictions, you know, it's very difficult to do it when a ball's not been kicked. But I think after 6 games, that has always been the sweet spot for me to go, look, things could drastically go one way or another, but after 6 games, you've got a good idea of where you're going to be. And I think our biggest challenges are going to be injuries and stability and consistency. I think that's going to be our biggest challenge. And I suppose the big question is, why are we going to finish 4th at best when last year we finished 3rd? And I think there's a mixture of reasons for that. I think most of the people who are challenging us have got better owners and more stability and better recruitment and a better squad. I think most of those teams above us or around us have got, you know, better morale, and that seems to be, you know, playing into their hands and out of our hands. And most importantly of all, I think that they've got a consistent idea of what their best 11 is and what their style of play is. Emery, everyone knows how they play. De Zerbi, everyone knows how Brighton plays. Eddie Howe, everyone knows how Newcastle plays. Klopp, the same. Arteta, the same. And obviously Pep, the same. So all these, and Spurs now with Ange, in a very short space of time, you know what their best 11 is and you know how they want to play. United's big problem is we still don't have a distinctive style of play unless we want to own the one that has been the most consistent style of play. And we don't really know what our best 11 is. I'll drop a little bit of a truth bomb here, and people might not like it. Erik ten Hag's style of play at Manchester United is very clear. It is the one that's been most successful for him. And I don't think he's in love with it, and I don't think it's a happy marriage. But the bottom line is, it's a successful marriage in the sense that you keep it tight at the back, and you transition and rely on counter-attacking in moments. Is that Ten Hag's philosophy? No. Is it the one he keeps being drawn back to? Yes, because when he tried something different at the start of last season, it didn't work. And he's tried something different at the start of this season, it hasn't worked. So he's got to go back to the thing that works. And I don't think he's going to leave it for a while. I think he's going to have to go back to it because it's simple. It's simple to tell players how to do it. And I think the reason he does it is because he hasn't got the right mentality of players to play the way he wants to play. Brighton have. Spurs clearly have. I don't think he's got the right players. And some people might say, well, has Bruno got the right IQ for it? Has Rashford got the right IQ for it? Has Casemiro got the right IQ for it? Very good point. Maybe Casemiro wouldn't work in a Brighton team. Maybe Bruno Fernandes wouldn't work in a Spurs team. Maybe Marcus Rashford wouldn't work in a Liverpool team. We're very quick to say, well, it's Maguire. It's McTominay. It's Sancho. It's the players that are out of the team. But I always think it's worth saying, maybe we can't play great football because our good players actually don't suit it. And that's a reality some people don't want to talk about. It doesn't mean that Bruno or Casemiro or Rashford are bad players. They're three of my favourite players. But can those three players play for Man City? Can they play for Arsenal? Can they play for Brighton? Can they play that brand of football? And that is a question we don't ask because it's an uncomfortable one. We want to say Maguire can't play in a high line. He's too slow. Probably true. But can Bruno play the style of football that some of the better teams in the league are playing? I think he probably can, but it's a question worth noting because the bottom line is Ten Hag can't get this team to play like Spurs. He can't get this team to play like Brighton. He certainly can't get this team to play like Man City. And let's be honest, nobody has. Van Gaal, Mourinho, Ollie, Ten Hag, they haven't been able to do it. Now, of course, Ollie wouldn't even know how to get them to play like Pep, and Mourinho wouldn't want to play like Pep. But Van Gaal would have wanted to do that, and Ten Hag would have wanted to do that. And I think the identity of the squad does not suit it. And this is where people go, we're not playing like Brighton. We're not playing like Spurs. But I don't think Ange or De Zerbi or Pep could come into Man United and get us to play like that. I don't think we have the squad profile to play that brand of football. And I don't think we've bought the players this summer who can play that brand of football. I don't think Amrabat is a Man City player. I don't think Rasmus is, I think Rasmus could work at Man City because I don't think Haaland is a technical footballer. He's a goal scorer, so Rasmus probably could work at City. But Mason Mount, would he work at Man City? Not so sure. Who else have we bought? Ericsson? Not really. Don't think he's a Man City player. So, look, you've got to have those profile of players. The fans forget all teams have to play each other twice. They will all drop points at some point, and then we have beat all the teams at home this season, says Mark. Optimism. Mark, congratulations on the sex. Graham, sorry. Mark, congratulations on the success of your podcast and the new ambassadorship. Thank you very much, Graham. You're a legend. Thank you very much for your support. But we're talking about United and what next and the issues and the probabilities of what's going to happen. I think in the short term, you're right. We've got to beat Palace twice, Brentford and Sheffield United. And then we can go, 9 points on top of where we are and get ourselves firmly into that top four race. But I think this season is going to be tough, is my honest answer. I think this season will do well to echo last season, but I certainly think the style of football is going to be the same. I think the season is going to be the same as last season in relation to how we play football. And the reason for that is I think we're going to be challenging fitness all season. There is no period of time where Ten Hag could do what he would like to do. I think Ten Hag would like to take his squad on holiday to Trinidad or somewhere and say, sit on a beach and relax for 2 weeks, your body and your mind. And then in the next 2 weeks, we're going to start doing some light training and working our way back to fitness. I think he'd love to do that with this squad. And I think this squad would love to have it because they haven't had it. From the start of August a year ago, they've basically played 3 games a week, been to a World Cup, gone on to international duty in June, probably had a week on holiday and then come back and start training again. The players are dead, really. A lot of them are dead fitness-wise. And that's not going to change this season. So I think we're going to be battling fitness problems all the time. Start telling the truth, please, Marx. It's false. I always tell the truth. And I think that that's going to make it very challenging for Manchester United. Hopefully it will level itself out. I think the Premier League are thick in relation to this added 10 minutes on every game. I think it's going to cause more injuries for us and others. But I think the challenge we're going to face all season is inconsistency and instability, because I don't think we're going to get to what I want to talk about next, which is what is Ten Hag's best 11. Because I don't think he'll ever get his best 11, and he hinted at that before. But what is it? What is his best 11? Also, those around us will probably strengthen in January. We're extremely unlikely to do anything significant, says Glenny Boy. I am going to talk about the January transfer window, but I think you've sort of nailed it. We won't do anything in January. We won't buy anybody in January. We'll be doing what we're doing now. Nicholas Dawood, welcome to the Members Club. So I would say that Ten Hag's best 11 is Onana, Wan-Bissaka, Varane, Martinez, Luke Shaw, Casemiro, Amrabat, Bruno, Anthony, Rashford and Højlund. And somewhere Mason Mount fits in. I just don't know where. And that's 12 players. So straight away, we don't know what his best 11 is, because Mason Mount's got to be in there. but I don't know where he fits. He spent £55 million on him. He's obsessed with him. He will find a place for him. But I already can't tell you what his best 11 is because I don't know where Mason Mount fits in if you've got Amrabat, Bruno, Casemiro, Anthony, Rashford and Højlund. Now, obviously, the Anthony absence will solve that problem because he can put Mount on the wing. But hypothetically, if Anthony was back, he would start him. So where would Mount play? Would Amrabat be back on the bench? We don't know what his best 11 is. And on top of that, I very much doubt he will get to pick his best 11 all season. I don't envisage a scenario where everybody's available, whether that be through suspension or injury or whatever else. I don't think he'll ever get to put his best 11 out all season, and I think he's hinted at that in the past. So that's going to be a challenge, of course, and there'll be times this season, hopefully not as bad as last night. We were very lucky to be playing Burnley with that team, but there will be times like last night where we have to play players that we don't really want to play. And when you do that in this league, it's always a risk. So I think it's going to be a big challenge. I don't, unfortunately, predict we're going to have a period of time this season where we go, oh, we're better than Spurs, we're better than Brighton. I don't think we're going to see good football this year. I think the reality bite is this season's going to be very much like last season, and we won't see this brand of football that I'm sure Ten Hag wants and we want to see as well. I think it's going to be workmanlike. I think it's going to be dogged. I think it's going to be grinding. I think it's going to rely on transitions, counter-attacks, moments, and a strong defence. And I think that's what we're going to do. And that's not acceptable. Of course it's not acceptable, but it's who we are, it's what we are, and it's a reality of what Manchester United is. The vision that Ten Hag has is not reflected by his bosses or the people above him. And whilst that's the case, of course it's going to be a challenge. But I still do think that we will be able to... What Ten Hag is very good at is grinding out results, as we saw last season, and I think he will have to get into that. The thing I fear, if I'm being honest, is there's a lot of decent sides this year. There's a lot of more stable sides than us, and the battle will be difficult. And as somebody just mentioned there, the January transfer window, which would be a nice saviour, welcome to Members Club, Nicholas. The January transfer window, which would be a nice saviour, is actually not going to be a saviour. It's going to be a reality bite because we won't have any money to spend we won't have any money to buy any players. And the other factor we've got to mention as well is that whilst I wish it was just how do we get our best 11 out there, how do we deal with the injuries, how do we deal with the issues with fitness, how do we deal with the style of play, I'd love it if that was the only problem. But you've also got things like the sale, which we all hope we have some sort of resolution on by the new year. Resolutions. It'd be nice to go into the new year with a new Man United, and maybe we will, but to be honest, maybe we won't. And even if we do, what if it's Sir Jim Ratcliffe? So there is a massive amount of uncertainty on a decision that is enormous. Like, when you sell your football club, it normally happens about every 20, 30 years. So it's an enormous thing that we've been waiting for about 12 months. And that's going to have a massive impact as well. Then you've got smaller things that are still big. What's going to happen with Jadon Sancho? That is still a problem. What's going to happen with Anthony? Is that going to be as long as Mason Greenwood? Or will it be shorter? Or will it end the same way? That's another problem. It's another expensive play. I mean, we've got £150 million worth of right wingers not playing for Man United for very different reasons, but not injury. You know, they are two very big things that need to be resolved. Can he keep this squad together? Can he fight off the media? So look, there is a positive with beating Burnley last night, but it's almost the eye of the storm, isn't it? That calmness in the middle of the storm, because we know there's more troubled waters ahead. And are we ready for them? And can we ride our way out of this storm? Because it is a calm, and there is an eye of a storm, and it is calm there. And that's where we are right now. But what is coming next? First season was to settle in. He made the transfers he wanted, says Braindead. He makes the substitutions he wanted. He's losing his games, not the players. Henrik says, I can play Mondays and Saturdays for 40 grand a week. Says, okay. Any good? Wingers on very high wages not playing, says Tina G. And I was told Rashford was drink driving. No, he wasn't. You see, these sort of things are just ridiculous, and I'm actually glad I read that out because he was breathalyzed and allowed to go home. So that's how dangerous lies and hate is. There's no truth in that at all. So I'm glad you said that because we can shut it right down. Absolute bollocks. I think we should be celebrating every win because this is a tough season, says Savage. And look, in the short term, Mason Mount should be back. Amrabat should be back. Varane is back. Maybe Mainu will be back soon as well. And Hannibal did well yesterday. You know, I don't think it was a great performance. I think it was an average performance, but he held his ground. He played better than McTominay, so that's another option as well. We actually have got a lot of options in attack. Pellistri, Garnacho, and Martial were not even used yesterday, and they're all fit. So I think it's, as I say, I think we're in a calm of the storm at the moment. And I don't think it's just Burnley. I think Crystal Palace twice, Brentford and Sheffield United, and Galatasaray. I think they are all games we have to win and should win. And I don't think we'll run away with ourselves if we do win them. But I think it gives us a bit of time. And if I was Ten Hag, I'd be looking at that and going, I've got enough players to win these games, but also it's a few weeks to work with the team, get some other players back as well. Spot on, Mark. Nobody is sharing his vision if they just piss off the Glazers, says Joseph. I'd take 16th place. 16th. Can't talk tonight. I'd take 16th place if it gets rid of the Glazers, says Ozzy. And the rest of the league will be celebrating every time United lose, says Phil B. Bigger than Big says bollocks. He was great, mate. I really don't care if you think Hannibal Mabry played like Gaza last night. That's up to you. I don't. I was very happy with his performance. I thought it was average. I thought everybody was average, apart from Johnny Evans and Casemiro. But they worked together as a team. I'm ecstatic with the win. That's all that matters. I'm firmly behind the manager and I'm firmly behind the players. There's one or two players I'm not behind because I think that they are troublemakers, but ultimately they need to fall into line. And what I was told this afternoon is that that performance last night has done more good for the team and the dressing room than you would imagine, because they know they didn't play particularly well. But that's so galvanising for a squad that when you go to somewhere like Burnley, you don't play particularly well. You're back up against the wall. It's a siege mentality. You score a fantastic goal. You keep a clean sheet. You get 3 points. You can sit there in the dressing room, look each other in the eye and know that everybody gave everything and go piss off to everybody else outside the dressing room. So the mentality in that dressing room, despite the talks of these leaks on Friday, it's in a good place at the moment. And people will say, well, it's only Burnley, but it's still 3 points. And from where we've been recently, we got our arse handed on a plate at Old Trafford by Brighton. That was humiliating. So I think that, you know, we don't need to individualise this. We're going to have to work as a team. And I can't be bothered with Player FC. I've been fighting this for a long time and I just don't like it. Rashford's shit, but Mabry's great. Bruno's shit, but I love Casemiro. You know, it's Johnny Evans is better than Maguire. It's like, we just need to get behind this team and we need everybody to get on board. I don't want to hear about disgruntled players telling family members who then get on contact with a journalist. I don't want to hear about that. We're in a really difficult position as a football club. Our enemy is the owners and our solution in the short term is these players and this manager. And we need to pick up some points. It's as simple as that. The manager has to get the players to buy into his vision. That's how it works. You don't buy a new team if you can't do that, so Stuart. I don't really think we've got a vision at the moment. And I don't think we have a vision at the moment. And I don't think we can have a vision at the moment. And I know that sounds a bit odd, but I don't genuinely think Ten Hag's got a vision for this football club that he's trying to implement at this moment in time. I think he has a bigger vision, but I think he's at a football club where he knows he can't implement it. And I think he's, as I said a few minutes ago, I think in defiance, he is playing a style of football that he doesn't really want to play, but it's the only style of football that works with these players in this circumstance. I used a very good example of this a few days ago. I think that if you had a director of football who knew what they were on about, and you had owners who gave you the money to do what you wanted to do, look, I'm talking about Man City. If I'm Pep Guardiola, and I've got, Tixi, who's his sporting director, and Sheikh Mansour is the owner. And Pep Guardiola looks at that squad and goes, oh, I've won 6 out of 6. I'm doing absolutely fantastic. But you know what? In the next 6 months, I really do need a new right back. Kyle Walker's doing a good job, but I need a new right back for the next 5 years. And he speaks to his director of football and he goes, I completely agree. I completely agree. Kyle's doing a great job at the moment, and he's been a brilliant servant, and we were right not to sell him to Bayern Munich in the summer. But over the next 6 to 12 months, we definitely need to bring in a really good right back. I've spoken to the owners. They're completely in agreement with you. They love what you're doing, Pep, to be honest with you. I can obviously argue about this if I want to, but I think you're right. Let's go and do it. And it gets done. And that's what happens at Man City. But at Man United, I guarantee if Ten Hag had the sporting director / director of football that Man City have got, and he had the owners that Man City have got, I guarantee you, I might not be right about the positions here, I'm just using them as an example, but I guarantee you, if Ten Hag had the support and infrastructure above him and finances that Pep's got, I think there'd be 6 positions in that first team he'd be looking to replace straight away or upgrade. For example, right back. Dalot's very good going forward. He worries me at the back. Wan-Bissaka's very good at the back. He worries me going forward. I want a right back who is my first choice right back who can do both, and I will keep one of the others as the backup because that's what I think they are. I agree. I agree with you. I agree with you, Eric. I really like Aaron and I really like Dalot. But I think over the last year you've been here, have they gone beyond what you've been able to, improve them to? No. And I think that you're right. I think we do need to bring that right back in as well. I also think I need another striker. I really like Rasmus. He's my choice. He's 20. He's one for the future, but he can't play 90 minutes, 3 games a week. And as we know, Anthony Martial can't play 1 game a week. So I need to bring in a striker. It can be another younger striker that can work with him, like Evan Ferguson, or it can be, a Victor Osman if we've got the funds. Eric, we're agreeing on everything here, Eric. I completely agree with you. Yes, I agree. We need to do that. Absolutely spot on. And I think Ten Hag would probably do that for about 6 positions in the first team. And I think some of our fans don't think like that, and they'll go, no, we're fine at right back. We've got Dalot and Wan-Bissaka, and I like both players, but I genuinely think that if Ten Hag had the freedom to build the team he wants to build in the identity he wants to build it, I don't think he'd be using 2 right backs he didn't buy. And that's the thing. When you compare Ten Hag to Pep, how many players did Pep and Klopp inherit and go, yeah, they're good enough for my system? And people don't think of it like that. It's the Sancho thing, isn't it? Sancho wasn't bought by Ten Hag, and he doesn't have to pick him. But obviously Sancho feels he should be picked. You look at the successful managers in the Premier League, how many of them are successful, i.e. winning Premier Leagues or challenging for Premier Leagues or doing and winning Champions Leagues? I'm talking about the Klopps and the Artetas and the Peps here. How many of them do it with the players they've inherited? Not many. Not many at all. Daniel says, Hannibal ran his socks off last night but wasn't very effective. Scott McTominay's been doing the same thing for years. We don't need another Scott McTominay, says Daniel. I think Hannibal's more attacking than McTominay. I don't think he's going to be doing that, to be honest with you. Look, in relation to McTominay and Hannibal, when you think about it, let them fight it out, because Casemiro, Mount, Amrabat, Bruno, Eriksen are all ahead of them. So they're 6th and 7th choice midfielders at best. And you've got Mainu to come back. So they could be 7th and 8th. So arguably last night, whatever you think of their performance, we had our 6th and 7th choice midfielders playing in our starting midfield, didn't we? So, look, it's very important that we win. And we did. But yeah, we're a long way. We're a long way away from where we need to be. And I think it does come down to the thing we know it does. AP Elaine says, hi, Mark. Fans must back the manager and stop being Players FC, as this makes the Glazers game distracting from the sale. Glazers out. Yes. And, there was a great point made by somebody, I think it was on the watch along yesterday, and they said, and this is great. This is a great point. So listen to this. It's not my point. They said, why is it all summer fans will say, Glazers out, Glazers out, Glazers out, all summer? They're running the club into the ground. They can't sell players. We're in loads of debt. They're not buying the players. They're not buying the players the manager wants. His number 1 targets are going to other clubs. We can't sell anybody. Glazers out, Glazers out. This season's going to be shit. And when it does go shit, we've got to remember who caused it. It's the Glazers. And then the season starts. We're shit. And people start going, Ten Hag out, Ten Hag out. And it's true. It's true. And it's so true. It happens every time. All summer, people will say, Glazers out, Glazers out. We're going to do shit this season. They've had a crap summer. It's so obvious we're going to do bad. People better not blame it on the manager. We can all see what's going on. It's the way the club's being run. It's Arnold, it's Murta, it's the Glazers. This is on them. It's not on Ten Hag. We've got to remember to keep saying this. Yeah, I agree. We'll never forget. Lose 3 out of 5. Well, I don't know about Ten Hag. You know, forget the Glazers for a minute. You can't be all them. I don't know about that. It's got to be Ten Hag. And it happens every fucking season. And it's so true. We are short memories. And partly because of the mainstream. The mainstream drive it because they've never driven Glazers out. They don't drive Glazers out because they don't know about it. You're never going to get a pundit on mainstream TV other than an ex-player talking about Glazers out. And also it's boring. It's boring, isn't it? Rival fans don't find it interesting when pundits go Glazers out. I mean, imagine if old Tim Sherwood was on Sky Sports going, you know what, at the end of the day, you can't really blame Ten Hag or the Man United players because the way that club's been run over the last 20 years, anyone would fail there. It really is about the Glazers. There'd be someone in his ear going, Tim, what are you talking about? No one's interested in that. Blame it on Ten Hag because that's what rival fans want to hear as well because it's turmoil. Yeah, you're right. Forget that statement I just made, the first common sense statement I've made in my life. It's all on Ten Hag, actually. That's what it is. It's all on Ten Hag. How can you blame the Glazers? It's Ten Hag. And that's what we get. To be honest, I miss the days when fans did not have to worry too much about things off the pitch, owners, media, etc. Just enjoyed the game as it is. I know it's naive, but I still miss it, says Young. Mate, that's all we ever want. That's all we want. I think every Manchester United fan would crave the days where we didn't really talk about the owners, where it was just about winning. I mean, I remember, and look, it might have been an age thing. I was a teenager at those days. I was still at school. But I remember like the mid-90s, 94 team, you know, Lee Sharp, Ryan Giggs, Steve Bruce, Cantona, Hughes, Ince, Keane. I don't remember anything about the ownership then. Now, older fans might say, well, you know, there was issues, you know, to be honest. But it wasn't an issue for me. I think 15, 16-year-olds now, they're fully aware of the Glazers. When I was that age, I wasn't. It was just enjoying Manchester United. And, you know, the biggest not off the pitch issues we had was when Cantona did that kick in at Selhurst Park and they were talking about banning him for life. And it was like, you can't, you know, that was all, that was it. And we can have that time again. We can have that time again. You know, Arsenal fans wanted Kroenke out. That's changed, hasn't it? Liverpool fans are always bubbling up about FSG, but ultimately if they're doing on the pitch, if you're doing well on the... Look, even under Sir Alex, when we won the Champions League in 2008, people still wanted the Glazers out, but it wasn't being mentioned that much because the team was doing well. Pre-season is the cause of the injury, more games than any, says Rory. And I think Luke Shaw finds it hard to get in if Reguilon keeps doing well on the left side. With new right back and or centre back next season, whole new back four since Ollie, says Levi. Yeah. Okay, I'm going to do it. I wasn't going to do it because it's not been that sort of show. But you've done it. You know, be proud of yourself, Levi, because you've pulled me in here. I absolutely am not on the bandwagon of Reguilon. I'm sorry. I know Beth is. I know some of you are. But I'm absolutely not on this Reguilon bandwagon at all. I don't think he's had a game for us yet over a 7 out of 10. Some people are talking about him like he's the next bloody Roberto Carlos. I don't see it. I think he's been invaluable to us over the last few games because there is nobody else. I love the fact that he played yesterday ill, and in no way am I dismissing him as shit, but I do not actually think he's as good as people think he is, and that is probably why he was third choice left back at Spurs and they were happy to let him go. I think he's good going forward. I think defensively he is a real problem, and I think you're going to see how much of a big problem he would be if you played him at left back against the Liverpools, the Arsenals, the Spurs, the Manchester Cities. I think yet again it is complete and utter disrespect to who I think is one of the best left backs in the world, and not only that, he's one of the best left-sided centre backs in the league, and his name is Luke Shaw. There seems to always be this thing with Luke Shaw that he's, you know, that he's not as good as he actually is. Luke Shaw is miles better than Reguilon. Absolutely miles. And even if you think I'm wrong, how the hell can you tell me that Reguilon is a better left back than Luke Shaw when everything points to the fact that he clearly isn't, and you've only seen him play 2.5 games for Manchester United? I like Reguilon, and I don't know whether there's an look. I think Reguilon or Malacia is an interesting conversation. I think that's a very interesting conversation in a few months' time when it comes to January. I think that's to look at. But Luke Shaw, I mean, come on. Luke Shaw can defend. Luke Shaw can go forward. He can also play left centre-back. Reguilon's good going forward, but defensively, it's a problem. It really, really is. And I just think it's disrespectful on Luke Shaw. I'm only coming at that from what I was asked by Levi, by the way. This is not an attack on Reguilon. The question is, can Reguilon take Luke Shaw's place? I'm going to be blunt here. That's like saying, can Calvin Phillips take Rodri's place in the Man City side? Like, there are levels to this game. I'm not saying it's like, saying can a Preston North End centre defensive midfielder take Rodri's place. Calvin Phillips has his values, but yeah, Luke Shaw is on a different level. Luke Shaw is still, I'll do a poll on it. I mean, you can vote, you can out yourself as stupid if you want to by voting Reguilon. But yeah, I absolutely do not see that at all. And look, I for one hope Reguilon's better very, very quickly, because we haven't got another left back at the moment if he's ill. And like I say, I think you've got to give the lad huge credit for playing yesterday when he was ill, because we literally have got nobody else. And you sometimes find yourself in this situation where I don't want to champion passion because we're Manchester United. And you very rarely should go, wow, at least they put their heart and blood, sweat and tears into the shirt. We shouldn't be championing that, because I've seen players play for Manchester United like Roy Keane and Brian Robson and Eric Cantona, David Beckham, Cristiano Ronaldo, Rooney. I've seen absolute superstar footballers play for Man United and give blood, sweat and tears. So that's the standard. It's not enough to give blood, sweat and tears. You have to also be talented. So I'm never going to just go, oh, wow, they give everything. But sometimes there is a scenario where you do highlight that. And I think Reguilon represents that last night. It's very rare to do it, because we shouldn't be just going, oh, they give blood, sweat and tears because we're Manchester United. We should get talent as well. But when you look at last night, we've got no left back. Malacia's injured, Luke Shaw's injured, Fernandes, Williams are out on loan. We've got no left back, and Reguilon's not very well, and he plays. And in those circumstances, when you're down to the bare bones and people are putting themselves on the line for the club and giving those blood, sweat and tears, I think in that situation, you can say, you know what, fair play. Fair play to him for doing that. So, and we're down to the bare bones at the moment. I think some players are having to do that, and they do deserve that respect. But in ordinary circumstances, blood, sweat and tears can, go and play for Preston. But yeah, give him some credit. Is Luke Shaw a top 5 left back in the world, says Brutos? Oh, 100%. 100%. Andy Robertson's there, of course he is, but I think Luke Shaw's massively underrated. I always have. He's had some right shit from people in this fan base, but no, I think he's a fantastic left back, and I think we miss him massively. I'm not saying he's not prone to having the odd bad game. I think he's like most of our good players. Occasionally, you go, how have you put a performance in like that? But no, I think he's comfortably one of the best left backs in the world, and he's had his challenges at Manchester United through injury and managers. I mean, God, you talk about players being bullied and abused by fans. I mean, can you remember what Mourinho used to say about Luke Shaw? We forget. So no, very, very good, very good left back, and we do miss him at the moment. Would be a very, very different team if we had Luke Shaw and Martinez and Varane back playing as well as they could. But no, I think there is an interesting question there about whether Reguilon or Luke Shaw. I mean, what's the age of Reguilon? He must be still 26. So, and he's certainly impressing Ten Hag at the moment. Nick says you're one of the biggest Luke Shaw stands I've ever seen. Not really. I don't really do that. I mean, at the end of the day, he's British. I don't normally back the British players, even though I'm British myself, because I think they get overhyped. So I don't normally back the British players because the media overhype them, and I can't be bothered with people who are overhyped. I've had it all my life, you know. Oh, they're amazing at this, that, and the other. No, they're not. They're not. You're just hyping them up. But no, I do think Luke Shaw is good, and I don't think he gets enough credit, really. Shaw can do everything you said, but going forward, his stats are not great. Compare his stats to Irwin, Sylvester, Everett, or even Trippier, says Sean. Yeah, but is that not a style of play problem for Manchester United as well? I mean, we transition so quickly. We don't really have that many opportunities where we can overlap. I mean, you're getting very technical into a football conversation here, but if you're not a team that is comfortable with possession in the final third, how are your fullbacks going to get forward to overlap and put crosses into the box? We're not comfortable in the final third. We don't keep possession in the final third. We get in the final third and we shoot. Or we get in the final third and we shoot. So we're not really set up. Certainly not like Sir Alex. I mean, I remember so many games at Old Trafford in the first 5 minutes where it was get in the final third, get your fullbacks overlapping, Neville, Irwin, Evra, even Wes Brown, overlap, whip a cross in. You know, your two strikers are in the box. Scholes will commit himself. Body's in the box. See what happens. It's difficult to get stats like Trippier if you haven't got players, if you're not comfortable in the final third and moving up the pitch, and we're not comfortable at doing that. I think Luke Shaw's got a very good. I actually really love the way that Luke Shaw crosses the ball. He doesn't really put a lot of backswing into it. He just sort of caresses it into very good areas. I'd like to see us do it more. It's what Man United used to be about. I love a great cross into the box. Shaw is a great cross of the ball, great defending, great going forward and can play at centre-back, which has been so important for us, says UK. I loved his cameo at left centre-back last season. I thought he was so accomplished in that position, and I tell you what, that was down to Ten Hag and the player. Luke's stats are affected by Rashford. Rashford rarely takes the overlap. He nearly always slows it down or cuts in, says TJ. That's an important thing as well. I might be boring some of the younger people here, but if you've ever got time to watch old videos of Manchester United, don't just watch best goals. Try and grab highlights. The way that Beckham worked with Neville was, Gary Neville wasn't the most technical right back in the world. He was hard working, but his job really was to have good stamina, and he'd just run past Beckham, and he'd know that Beckham would either use that run as a decoy to put a cross in himself, or he'd play it into Neville's path perfectly to whip a cross in. And if you want to get assists as a fullback, you've got to have a winger that understands what you're going to do, and you work in tandem. And we haven't really had those relationships. I think as a football club, we've forgotten about those relationships, actually. I heard a few people talking about it last year with Delo and Anthony, but we haven't had a good fullback winger relationship for years. And it used to be very, very important. We just don't create those opportunities or relationships anymore, and it's a shame. It is a shame. Ten Hag signed Reguilon. They should work on his defence, says Gattuso. Well, look, maybe he will improve. Maybe Ten Hag will improve him defensively. Anyway, look, I've really enjoyed the show tonight. A different type of show on a Sunday, a more in-depth conversation show on a Sunday about Manchester United and where we're going to be next. In conclusion, I think we've got more problems to come. I think injuries will blight us all season. I think the style of football will have to be pragmatic like it was last year. I think the sale is still going to be hanging over us. I think this January transfer window is going to be disappointing because there won't be any money. I think there are still problems like Sancho, Anthony and others that are going to be issues that Ten Hag has to resolve. And I think that we are going to face challenges week on week on week. And because of that, I think that we have to be behind the manager and behind the players. And I think our ceiling this year, whether we like it or not, is 4th place and maybe a trophy. And that's what our season is. I might be wrong. I hope I am. But I think that's where we are. And I think a reality buy is what we need. I don't think it's possible for these players and this manager to do better than 4th place in a domestic trophy. And I think that's embarrassing. Not for Ten Hag, not for the players. I think it's embarrassing for the football club that we have visibly taken a step back because of the instability in the football club above. We were 3rd place last year, and we've had to take a step back because of what's going on above. And I'm not talking about God or anything like that. I know some of you probably won't believe it. I'm talking about the Glazers. Hi, Mark. Do we know if Rashford was at fault in his car accident? It usually takes 2 poor drivers to get into an accident. Buster, what? With all due respect, what does that even mean? He is a footballer for Manchester United, and we should only be concerned in what he's doing in that sense. How he drives his car, who was responsible, I don't care. All I care is that neither party were injured. And as far as we know, the police let both people go off and, recover from, I'm sure, what was a very traumatic incident. We need to stop living in people's private lives. Like, is Jadon Sancho shy or arrogant? I don't care. Was Marcus Rashford at fault for a car crash? I don't care, as long as nobody was injured and that's all that matters. I don't care. I do care, obviously. I don't want to see cars getting hurt. But the reality is, I think we spend too much time living in people's private lives. I've said this to you so many times. I spoke about the 90s. I spoke about the United side I adored growing up as an early teenager. As a man, I know some of those players are complete knobheads and were probably bigger knobheads then. But they're legends of the club that I enjoyed watching, and it was a great, great time. The 90s, music, film, football, what a time. Brilliant. A lot of the people I idolised, probably knobheads in film, TV, music and football. But I had a great time and I enjoyed it. And I don't really care because I'm not going to go and have a Sunday dinner with them and I'm not going to socialise with them. I think we spend too much time trying to live in people's social lives and we don't like them if they were at fault for this or they were at fault for that. Obviously, the big headline stuff that involves criminality and stuff like that, that gets thrown into your lap. But I think we spend too much time, rumouring about, what's he up to in his own life? Oh, he's not in a relationship anymore. He's out drinking every night. Is he? Well, where's the evidence? No. People forget Luke Shaw is a great left-back, good centre-back, good all-rounder, says Martin. Basically, one word, professional. I love it. Shaw can do everything you said, but going forward, his stats have done that from Sean. Thank you, everyone, for watching. Make sure you smash a like on the video. Tomorrow, we've got Ben Foster on the show because it's Monday. We've got Fabrizio Romano on the show. He'll be talking about a few interesting things as well. Morning show at 10, 8 o'clock show. And of course, we're playing on Tuesday, so we'll have a preview for you too as well. Busy start to the week. Make sure you smash a like on the video and subscribe. Don't forget Boohoo Man. 40% off, not 20% off, 40% off with the code Goldbridge. Get yourself one of these. The hoodies are absolutely lovely. They've got a fleece lining, It just makes you feel so comfy on these autumnal nights. It was a great show, Savage. Thank you very much. And don't forget, tomorrow afternoon at 3:30, second episode of the EAFC Goldbridge Ball Man United career mode. Unbeaten in 4. Ten Hag wasn't. Speak to you tomorrow.